As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster.
There's no crying in baseball!
I ate his liver with some fava beans. A nice cliente.
That was totally wicked!
If I can change, and you can change, everybody can change!
And welcome to another episode of Your Next Favorite Movie. I am your host, Josh G. And today I have not one but two guests. Together they do the Radio Chaos live stream. So please welcome Maxtac and Angellus.
G'day from down under.
G'day.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think you guys now are officially my furthest away guests at this point. So yeah, I haven't gone this far out yet. So there you go. There's that.
Well, hello from the future. It's it's a balmy 18 degrees Celsius here in winter. I'm on the central coast of New South Wales. Angellus is up in Brisbane, which is just north of the border from New South Wales in the state of Queensland. And we're the tag teaming hosts of Radio Chaos, which is the Alita Army live stream. So you can probably tell what side of the fence we sit on with the movie we're going to be discussing today.
Well, that's one thing I do with this show. That's why it's called Your Next Favorite Movie. I want people to bring me a movie they're passionate about. I promote no negativity on the show. I keep it film positive because every movie is someone's favorite movie, I say. So I always want the most passionate people about the movies they're talking about. So that is something I do on this show.
Well, considering that we just completed a live stream rewatch of the movie for Rosa Salazar's birthday, which it is this weekend, you could probably tell that we're right up there in the high end of loving this particular movie. I think Angellus has probably seen it more times than me, though, which is quite impressive. That was my 41st viewing. I don't know if he counts the number of times he's watched it, but I'm pretty sure.
No, I don't count. Not that I can count very often at the best of times. But, I mean, it's like your favorite song, like your favorite food. Speaking of favorite food, we'll get into that later. Like, you just don't, you don't keep track down of like how many times or how many different toppings you've had on pizza. You see a pizza, you eat it. You listen to your favorite song, you just shout out the lyrics like because you know it off by heart. And even movie quotes, same thing. Like prior to Alita, it was like movies like Ninja Turtles and Top Gun. And again, we'll get into the topic when we address the questions. But I mean, you just like there are good movies, there are great movies, and then there's movies for us like Alita, and they're very rare and few and far between. And while we do try to keep it objective, it's there's just so much about this movie that like we just can't stop talking about it, which is why we jump on shows like this, which is why we even created shows like Radio Chaos, because we just can't stop and we never will.
But we also have a good reason for Radio Chaos. It's basically to keep the subject of the IP, Alita Battle Angel, current and keep it in people's minds because we're pushing for a sequel. Disney got the rights to the movie after they absorbed 20th Century Fox and have been sitting on it. We have some theories about that, but we basically want to motivate them in a positive manner because the Alita Army is actually one of the most positive fandoms on the internet. Basically, our queen, as we call Alita, is a character who is extremely positive. She changes everybody she interacts with in a positive manner. And we try and echo that in positivity and perseverance. And we are going to get our sequel. I refuse to exist in a reality where that does not happen. So it's got to happen.
Okay, so tell everyone how they can find the Radio Chaos if they're looking for you, like how to keep up with when you're going to do a live stream or any updates you guys are giving.
Well, the Alita Army is a worldwide fandom. Just now we've had people from Australia, America, and England on the live stream. It is available on the Alita Army channel on YouTube. There is 125 episodes on there. Like Angela said, we just can't stop talking about Alita, so a lot of them are like 3 hours long. You got to be a little patient. But there's a lot of good topics on there. We've interviewed lots of people from the movie and people involved in the making of the movie. We're working our way up to the stars. We haven't quite got there yet, but we've interviewed Alita Army, who was one of the writers of the original script with James Cameron. Just recently, we interviewed Elle Lamotte, who played Screwhead in the movie. That was the female with the forearms, the cyborg with forearms and the screw thingy in a forehead, hence the name. We're working on getting up there with the bigger stars in the movie, but as yet we haven't cracked it. But everybody we've talked to has been really friendly and really excited about being part of that movie, and they want a sequel as well. So they pretty much, if you want to be part of the Alita Army, all you've got to do is watch the movie, enjoy it, and want a sequel, and you're in. It's a low bar. But the people in the Alita Army, they're really, really wonderful people. And as we say at the end of the live stream, we do this because we love the fandom, we love the movie, and we want a sequel, and that's why we're doing it.
And that's part of the appeal as well, because people looking from the outside in would think, they're just a bunch of crazies. They're another, I don't know, Star Wars fandom or DC fandom or something like that. But like, I don't know, like there are fandoms and then there's just like extended families, and I feel like it's the latter for us.
All right, so before we continue down into the movie itself, Max, I know you want to go ahead and talk about the podcast you co-host, Science Fiction Remnant.
Right, yes. So Science Fiction Remnant was originally started by two fellows from, I'm not sure which state they're in. In fact, I think one of them moved, so they're in different states now, but they're on eastern coast of the US. It's Robert and Giancarlo. I started watching listening to their podcast back early last year. And the Science Fiction Remnant podcast covers all things to do with science fiction. So be it movies, TV, computer games, novels, what have you. Anywhere where science fiction is extolled and enjoyed, Science Fiction Remnant will go there and talk about it. And back at the end of last year, I was talking to Robert because we have a Discord, and I joined the Discord, and I was talking to him about that. And it's one of those things where you listen to a podcast and these guys are really cool, and then you get to talk to them, and yep, they're really cool. You can have a great conversation with them, and they love the same stuff you love, and you just become friends. It's just what happens. It has to happen. And then Giancarlo had a few issues, and he wasn't able to record for a couple of months. And at one point I said, Robert, I'm really missing the podcast. Can I like guest co-host? We can put a few more out. He said, yeah, sure. So I'd been on there for Alita, surprise, surprise. And then the very last episode of last season was Darling in the Franxx, the anime, which I'd really enjoyed. It was the first anime I'd watched, and then immediately went back and watched the whole thing again because it was that good. And I went on and we talked about that one, and it was their second highest rating show of the entire season. The highest rating show being 2001: A Space Odyssey, no surprise there. And then Giancarlo came back on board a couple of months later, and I said, oh, well, you won't need me anymore. And they said, hey, hold on a minute. Who said you could leave? So it was a case of, well, you're in now. You're stuck. It's not a bad thing to be stuck doing. But, so I joined them for season 2. And since then, the Science Fiction Remnant podcast has been number 1 for a week on Good Pods. It's our Adam Project episode, which is a Netflix movie about time travel and all sorts of funky stuff. That was featured on their front page. So good things are happening. And it's a great podcast. We have a lot of fun. And being a trained scientist, I kind of bring sort of like a more scientific analysis sort of bent to the discussion. And they usually turn to me when they go, is this feasible? And I go, well, I'm not a physicist, but... And
What does
right
science
at the
into
end of the
science
show,
fiction?
we have a segment now called The Science Behind Science Fiction. Because one of my favorite things is watching science fiction IPs, and especially really old ones, that you look at it and go, hey, look at that technology that they thought up there. It actually looks a whole lot like this, which is happening in 2018 or 2019 and so forth. So I sort of try and draw out what influences this IP might have had on where science is going now. So that's a lot of fun. We've picked up a whole bunch of things. We just did Alien, the movie Alien from 1979, and they actually had, if you go back and watch the movie, they had these ECG dots. I happen to know that they were ECG dots because of where they were placed, because I used to support physiology where we did ECG readings. And of course, most ECG machines, they have cables, but these didn't. They just had the dots. So obviously they were some sort of wireless technology, be it was probably Bluetooth. But they don't really have those as yet. And I was looking at that and going, well, that's really interesting. But other technologies that we're using right now do have Bluetooth connectivity. I have this little doodad on my arm here because I'm a type 1 diabetic. I'm just showing them on the video here. You guys can't see it. But there's this little disc on my arm, and that's got technology inside it which reads my interstitial blood glucose, which is it's not blood glucose, it's interstitial fluid glucose, which is slightly different. It's outside of the venous system, but it still gives a good track of what's happening with your blood glucose. And that little guy there has alarms on it, and it's connected via Bluetooth to my phone. So my phone alarms anytime my blood sugar is going low or high, which is really, really useful. It's like something I wish I had for years. But yeah, so you can sort of see how the technology has been influenced by the things that they came up with in movies 20, 30, 40 years ago. So it's really good fun to look at that sort of stuff.
Yeah, that's actually a really cool aspect and different way of looking at it. I love that. So that is pretty awesome. All right, so we're going to get into it. Let's talk about Robert Rodriguez's Alita Battle Angel.
From the producers of Avatar comes a new world and a new hero.
You're not just a warrior, Alita. You're the most advanced weapon ever.
On February 14th,
This world needs you. She's threatening the natural order of things.
her legend
Destroyed a girl called Alita.
begins.
Don't underestimate who I am.
Alita Battle Angel, February 14th.
All right, let's start with the basics. Did you guys see this in theaters? Is that where you first saw it?
I saw it once in theaters, and as a result, the memory of that viewing is fading, or the visual cues and the visual memory is fading from me. But one thing that you will always sort of remember is like the feeling that you get when you watch it for the first time, your reactions, not what you thought, but well, yeah, pretty much like what you feel, and yeah, without going too deep into it, because some of them are directly addressed by the questions list you sent earlier, and yeah, so I saw it the once. Unfortunately, I wish I went back and did it again, but you could say that I blame Alita for that, because after that first viewing, I felt so entranced, so enchanted, just under their spell, under her thumb, if you want to put it that way, that like I guess I was in a daze for weeks on end before I realized, well, now that I've come off that cloud, it's like, what do I do now? I'll search it up, I'll Google it, I'll do this, I'll do that, look at it on social media, and the rest, as they say, is history, and that's how I became a part of it all.
My experience is somewhat similar, but it runs a fair bit deeper. The movie Alita Battle Angel is based off a manga from Japan called Gumu, which means gun dream, direct translation. When it was originally brought over to the US in, I think it was 92, it was originally started in Japan in 1990 in serialization form. But in 92 it came to English, and it was called Battle Angel Alita, obviously they reorganized the name to Alita Battle Angel because Cameron only does A&T movies. Surprise, surprise. So they needed an A at the start, so they rearranged it. But I was a big fan of the manga way back in the day. Yes, these creatives do that sort of stuff. I was a huge fan of the manga back in the day. I collected the whole of the original series. There's actually 3 series. It's still going. So the guy's pretty much spent his entire life writing this thing, Yukito Kishiro. Yes, we both had copies of these things up in my cabinet up here. I've got the original version. I've got the latest box set. So it's all up there. But it's a fantastic read. I highly recommend if anybody enjoys the movie to read it. I know there's people who go and see a movie and go, oh, I can't read the source material, it'll spoil the next movie. But the source material is quite a bit different in certain ways from the movie. The movie's basically overlapping story arcs because they've only got 2 hours to do a movie. So it's overlapped the first 3 story arcs. But they run sequentially within the manga, so it works a bit different that way. And the character of Shirin does not exist in the manga. She was introduced in the OVAs, which were 2 half-hour shows that came out in 92, I think it was, in Japan, and about 94 translated into English, which I have in the original VHS there and the DVD version up there. So collector. But anyway, so I was a big fan of this manga. I would read it and read it, and then I'd go away from it for a little while and let him write some more. And then I'd come back and I'd reread it from the start and go up to where he's at that point. The movie covers the first 2 volumes, I think it is. Volume 1 and 2 of the original manga series, which was 9 volumes. But now there's 38 volumes, including broken up into 3 series. So and it just keeps going, and it's a fantastic story. Space opera-y kind of length and depth and breadth with fantastic characters, and a lot of that has translated really well into the movie. So anyway, in 1999, Cameron went and purchased the rights to a movie adaptation and any anime rights, and that went to 20th Century Fox. And then he started working on a script with Leda Kalogridis. Around 2006, he was trying to work out the technology because he always said, I want to have the main character fully CG because it's the only way it's really going to work for me as a creative. And then he went, okay, I've got this story about blue aliens and I've got Alita. Maybe I'll have a go at the blue aliens first because they have to be photoreal, not photorealistic. So the difference between those two is photoreal means that it looks real but has no real basis in reality because it's completely fictional. Photoreal means that there's enough reality in there that you could tell if it wasn't working properly because, it's based on Earth, everyday streets, normal people, lots of normal people and stuff like that. So he went, I'll give the blue aliens a go first. So he did Avatar, and the rest is history, as it were, for the box office. And that one, we know that went really, really well. And then he got so caught up with Avatar and making sequels and wanting to keep going with that one for the rest of his life that he shelved Alita. And it wasn't until Robert Rodriguez and he were having a lunch together and catching up that Rob Rod said to him, hey, so what happened with that Alita thing that you were working on? He says, it's shelved. I'm doing Avatar now. He says, do you mind if I have a crack at it? And he said, yeah, sure. I'm not entirely happy with the script as it stands. Why don't you have a play with it and see what you can do? He says, yeah, okay, summer's coming up. I'll work on it over summer and give you something at the end of summer. It was also told to cut it down from 2.5 hours to 2 hours because the sort of budget that was going to be needed, they weren't going to quite get the money for it. So they were more likely to get the money if they cut it down from 2.5 to 2 hours. So anyway, he came back with the treatment of the script, and they managed to push it through 20th Century Fox, and And then we finally, in 2019, got the movie we've been waiting for 20 years. So it was a long wait, but it was a fantastic wait. I mean, I saw a trailer for it on YouTube one morning, and I was like, oh my god, it's actually coming out. I'd completely forgotten that they were trying to do this. And I'm Googling and I'm finding out, and I went, oh my god, there's a pre-screening coming on. It's like the Wednesday before the full release on Valentine's Day. No, sorry, it was the Saturday before the Wednesday. And I said, is there any near my house? Yes, there is. Is it in 3D? Yes, it is. I was on those tickets like a seagull on a chip. It's just, I had to have it. And I'd moved away from my friends. Like, I'd moved out of Sydney because big cities, I've had enough of those. So I moved up the coast. So I'm like an hour's north of Sydney. I didn't have any friends in the area who would want to go see something like that, so I went by myself. Screw it, I've got to see this movie. Went to see this movie, sat down in the theatre, and it's like a job interview. You're nervous. You're like, is it going to be good? Is it going to be good? I hope they didn't wreck it. Oh, come on, it's going to be good. It's going to be good. And then the lights went down, and you get the 20th Century Fox logo, dun, 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 and then it does that sweep, and you get 26th Century Fox. And the moment I saw that, I knew I was on a winner. I'm like, they went to that detail. This is going to be fantastic. And I was not wrong. And the beautiful thing about it, people say, oh, you've read the source material, it's ruined the movie for you. Not at all. I sat there and I went, oh my God, the opening's just like in the manga. This is fantastic. There's Alita. Oh, it's happening. This is great. And then there were surprises, like the fight with Grishka in the underworld was completely different from what was in the manga. And the whole fist in the eye and the F Your Mercy, that wasn't in the manga. That was movie only. And I was like, oh wow, that's just sweet. And the way she finds the body in the movie, going to the crashed spaceship, that's not in the manga. In the manga, it's in Ido's basement. He just puts her in it. Yep, boof. That's not in there, and it's an improvement on the story as far as I was concerned. And then on the pipe at the end, that is exactly the same as the manga. They did it exactly the same. And when Ido calls her and says he's gone up, I'm like, oh, they're gonna do it. They're gonna do it. They're gonna do it. And they did. It's just beautiful. So it did not spoil it at all. It was fantastic. And I came out of that cinema, I was shaking. I was like, oh, this is fantastic. And I wrote a review for my friends on Facebook, and I was like completely gobsmacked. I was just like Angellus is like, I was quite busy at work at the time, and it was another 2 weeks before I could go back to the cinema. I was just like, oh my God, it was a high for 2 weeks just thinking about this and go, oh, this is amazing. And the music from Junkie XL, fantastic. The casting was brilliant. The work that Weta Digital did on it was groundbreaking. And the fact that it was ignored by the Academy was just like heartbreaking. And the reason it was ignored, because the CGI was so good, they could not tell it was CGI. They did not know, and I did not know until a couple of months later, that Alita's hair is completely CGI. She's riding on the back of that one-wheeled motorcycle called a gyro, and her hair's flapping in the wind, and there's little strands of it going everywhere, and you cannot tell that sucker is not real. That CGI is... It's amazing. And I reckon that the guys from the Academy, the old farts, sat down there and watched it and went, oh, this is nothing. She's got big eyes, but other than that, it's just normal. Where's the CGI? They could not tell. So they did not give it any awards. And I'm like, you idiot. But anyway.
So I would say it's safe to say that as soon as you came out of there, it was your favorite movie. Like it would jump to the top.
Well, for 20 years, since 1999, my favorite movie had been The Fifth Element. Now, a lot of people bag me for having that as my favorite movie, but The Fifth Element has some really good tight scripting. The acting is fantastic. It's a classic sci-fi adventure romp, and the linking between the scenes, the way that the end of one scene plays into the start of the next scene with the dialogue, it's fantastically written. Go back and watch that one, and look at it for that, and you will see that it's a really well put together movie. I thoroughly enjoyed it, but it was knocked off its pedestal after 20 years as soon as I watched Alita Battle Angel. And I went back another 9 times to the cinema before it finished its run, which is not bad, but nowhere near the top of... I'm not even in the top 10 of the Alita Army for the number of times people went to the cinema. There's this German guy, he reckons... No, I don't know if this is true, but he's got a friend who runs a cinema. He reckons he saw it 312 times.
Ooh,
I'm not quite sure how that works. The world record is supposedly 123 times from a guy in China. But this other guy claims that he saw it more times, but I guess it wasn't recorded. Like, he didn't have all the ticket stubs because he was getting in for free, so he couldn't claim that he did it. But, yeah.
I feel like someone just claimed that for Spider-Man recently, too, that they saw it over 300 times. Yeah. I'm like, I don't know how, but anyway, that's...
Well, every single time that I went to the cinema, it was an experience. As I've explained to a lot of people who've only ever seen it on DVD, it is an experience in the cinema. The 3D is amazing. Even, like, I bought a 3D television, which you couldn't buy in 2019. You couldn't buy it off the shelf. You had to go and buy a second-hand one. So I got a second-hand Samsung 55-inch curved screen. It's sitting up on the wall just over there, and I watch Alita and other 3D movies on it, and it's just fantastic. I mean, although the 3D in Avatar is great, and I have that to watch on my screen as well, the 3D in Alita just seems that little bit better. It has another 9 years of tweaking on board. And you can actually see through her body and through Zapan's body, through the neck with his cables. And you could see the depth in it. It's just amazing to see in 3D.
All right, well, I'm gonna let you in on a secret. I have a 3D TV. So I might have to go buy this one. I did not watch in 3D. Someone else had it, so I watched their copy. But I still have a 3D TV that I bought in 2012, and that's the reason I won't upgrade to 4K yet, because you can't get one. And I obviously didn't see in theater, but I'm a big proponent of home 3D over theatrical 3D. I think home 3D just shines better for me personally.
Well, it is probably the best 3D I've ever seen. And I know I'm biased, but it's worth spending the $25 or whatever it is to get the ultimate edition of the Blu-ray pack and check it out. It is great.
That's possibly why I only saw it the one time in the cinema, because I figured, wow, this is so good. I'll 100% get the Blu-ray or DVD or whatever, and like just watch it a billion times at home, sort of thing. And then I guess I sort of lost track. When I did go to watch it in the cinema, it was starting to get to the end of its runtime, so I missed out there. And I guess by the time the cinematic runtime had finished, the impact hadn't, like, I was still up on that cloud 9 that I mentioned earlier, so I hadn't come back down yet to watch it again. And yeah, like I said, I'm just glad that I even watched it at all. So,
well, there's this guy named Eddie McTrigger who left the fandom due to health issues, but when he was watching at the cinema, he does blocks of time where he works ridiculously hard and then he has a month off. And that month off was when Alita was showing, and he went to see it 53 times in cinema. And he would go and he would just watch her hair for the entire length of the movie. You know, he'd watch her eyes for the entire length of the movie, and just focus in on one little thing and really, really, really enjoy it. But there's so much detail in this movie. The second time she opens her eyes in the bed, like she opens her eyes and looks around and closes her eyes again, and then her eyes go and bounce open because she realizes, oh, something's changed here. Like she properly wakes up. In a cinema with really good Dolby, with good tweeters, you can hear the servos in her eyes when her eyes open, and you can hear it. And that's the level of detail in the audio processing that they went to.
Wow. So, Angelus, you didn't see it but the once in theater, but did you know immediately it was your favorite, or did it take till you got that Blu-ray and got to see it that it became your favorite?
Well, first up, Alita is definitely my top favorite, and it joins two other movies in doing so. And what I tend to do is, because Alita is always going to be my number one pretty much for the remainder of all time. Or at least...
Until the sequel comes out.
Yeah, well, until that comes along. I always go, all right, so Alita is my first favorite, but I'll start listing all the other movies that, second place, third place, etc. But I'm going to go the opposite direction here and start off with what came before it and leading up to Alita. For me, and funnily enough, in 1990, I saw the Ninja Turtles movie live action, the one with the puppetronics by Jim Henson, I believe. I remember my dad taking me to go see it, and it was so packed that they had like about 3 or 4 ushers guiding people in. Like we got a space for 2, space for 3. Any single people, we can slot you in here. And so yeah, I went to watch that quite a few times actually at cinema, and then got the whole VHS, because VHS was the thing back then. And then leading up to that, I became a big fan of Dragon Ball, watching that growing up at 7 o'clock in the morning before going to school, and then primary school, high school, and so yeah, for much like The Fifth Element, for a very long time, the Broly movies and Ninja Turtles were the thing. I collected all the figurines. I got all the comics. Don't have a Dragon Ball Z manga collection, but that's so huge that I figured that I probably won't bother, and it's still ongoing as well. But yeah, in 2019, Alita came along, and like it's not even a passing of the torch, but in a way, it's considering that like I grew up into that. Alita just sort of, I guess, joined the that select few. Like she joined the Ninja Turtles and Broly, up in the upper echelon of my top favorites, the GOATs, greatest of all times. And what made her stand out is that obviously Dragon Ball and Ninja Turtles were all from my childhood. This came in during my adulthood, and now that I'm older, wiser, I guess I'm less impressionable because I'm already grown into my adult mindset, and for something like Alita to come along and just completely rewire my neural pathways, it feels like it just, well, much like we keep on saying, it blew my mind at the time, and yeah, and that's how I became involved. I just wanted anything and everything to do with the leader, whether it be merch, whether it be music, figures, much like the Ninja Turtles, but like here comes a cyborg from Iron City. So that's how she became my top favorite, and she's, it's not to say that the Ninja Turtles or Broly are bad, but like I said, I guess the best way of putting it is that they're all tied for first place. So in saying that, if I was to start listing all the people that were tied for first place, the first name I would always say would be Alita. And so you could say she's the top of the first place pile.
Okay, well, I gotta say, I love that you brought up Ninja Turtles, because that was actually the first movie I ever saw in a cinema. So that one does hold a special place in my heart for that reason. So, all right, so we've talked a lot about it, but tell everyone what Alita is about, like the general story of the movie. You've already talked a lot about the manga, and you've talked about the movie some, but just that overall synopsis.
You want to do that one, Angelus? I've talked a lot. I thought you should have it too.
No, I can do that. I can take over. All right, so I'll try to keep the manga and anime out of it, and I won't spoil the many sort of, I guess, homages that it pays to the source material. But essentially, it's what? Let me do some maths here. 400-500 years in the future, cybernetics is as prevalent as the societal disparity between the upper class and lower class, and it's physically represented with Zalem up in the Sky City, as it were, being the upper class, and the people down in Iron City being the lower class. And the first character that comes on screen would be Doc Ito, and he's scrounging around because he's a cyber surgeon. Now, as you can imagine, down in Iron City, with the lower class, not people are going to have a lot of money. People are going to have a lot of resources, and those that are either just really smart, really strong, or criminal. And another character comes into that as well. And so he's going through the what they call the scrapyard, or the dump that comes up from Zalem, because they get the cream of the crop and just give all the scraps and leftovers down to the people below, because they're the laborers, they're the workers that feed the upper class of Zalem, both metaphorically and literally. And
the floating city literally dumps its garbage onto Iron City below it. Literally. The first scene is it pouring out of the bottom of it.
Yeah, the shape of the tube that it comes out of is kind of, well, it has to be seen to be believed. But and so yeah, and that's where he discovers Alita, and because he's a cyber surgeon, he's a cyber doctor, basically, much like a normal GP would be nowadays, but for cybernetics. And he doesn't have much money, he doesn't have much resources, so he's going around through the scraps as well, much like any other lower class citizen. And he discovers Alita, so brings her back, fixes her up, and whatever his motivations would be, you do discover what they are later, but I won't spoil too much of it. So he brings him back and fixes her up, and Alita is born. And that's, I guess, where the story really begins, because both the character and us as the audience, we don't know who she is, we don't know where she's from, aside from being from scrap or dump from Zalem. And yeah, the movie, as many reviews will say, it's like a coming of age, no, not coming of age, or I guess it is in a way, but it's also a story of self-discovery as well. You're discovering who you were in the past, so you can decide who you want to be in the future. And obviously she's going through this reset, I guess is a really good word to use, down in the lower class area, as opposed to being raised in the upper class area. She gets a different sense of a different set of priorities, a different set of influences for those decisions that she makes for the future. And yeah, I mean, even on Radio Chaos, we've discussed many topics. What if she was raised by someone else? What if she was raised somewhere else? And yeah, it's just mind blowing that even going back to the favorite movie topic, again, I'm grateful that I saw it just at one time, but that one afternoon I decided that I'm bored, I want to go watch a cinema movie. There's Alita and some other movie that I've forgotten, because I ended up going watching Alita. And just to think that everything hinges on that one decision is, it's moments like this. And leading back into the topic here, because she's discovering herself, because she's discovering who she is and deciding who she is, like, many of her decisions are going to be profound, again, is the best word that I can come up with. And yeah, and you go through the various elements that do influence that, the criminal elements, the elements that are born from Ito, and again, without spoiling it, yeah, and the fifth element, sorry, I had to put that in there. And so yeah, and it goes through the entire movie. That's like a very broad review, if you want to call it that.
Oh, and a big part of the movie and its visuals is a sport called motorball, which is cyborgs on wheeled feet that zoom around a track trying to kill each other at up to 150 mile an hour. So it's pretty exciting.
It reminded me of an upgraded version of Rollerball, if you've seen that.
Yes,
from the 70s.
Oh, we have actually.
In fact, there is a line in the movie which is a direct homage to Rollerball 1975. So look for that one.
Bonus points if you can pick up on it when people watch it. Yeah, go watch the movie.
So, Angelus, I noticed you said something. It seemed like you came at it from a different point than Max over here.
Yes.
Because you said you just chose it between two movies. So were you not familiar with all the mangas before you watched this?
I was familiar with her story, but nowhere near as invested in every sense of the term. Emotionally, I was nowhere near invested financially. I didn't buy any merch. I didn't own the VHS. I've seen the anime a few times. I knew there was a manga, but never owned it, never read it. And as I like to say, for me, watching this movie on a whim of all things, it completes the Holy Trinity, if you will. Using a Legend of Zelda reference, it is the third point in the Triforce. It's it completes just the overall picture that is Alita Battle Angel, and as I like to call her, the Mona Lisa of the digital age. Watching that movie led me to buy all the manga. It led me to even watch the anime again, just to sort of, wow, did that really happen? It's like the references, and I'd be taking screenshots and comparing them, and yeah, it's amazing how there are just so many references. Some of them are direct, I wouldn't say rip-offs, but they're taking it from the page of the manga or the cell animation of the anime and putting it directly into the movie. Sometimes, and I applaud the movie for doing this, telling its own story, but fans that are aware of it will pick up on it instantaneously that, wow, that is a direct reference to what happened here. And I will give one example, so, minor spoiler alert, but in the underground fight scene that Maxine mentioned earlier, Gruishka, or as he's also known by another name in the manga, by the manga if you want to find out.
He's known as Gruishka in the OVA and Mukaku in the manga.
Yep. Where he turns into, basically says, I'll turn you into a living pendant in which to adorn my chest so I can hear your voice pleading for mercy every day. And basically I had a screenshot of that particular scene with the subtitles up, for example, and then I'd have it opposite the manga panel that appears in, and it's almost I say word verbatim. You can see the direct reference, and it's clear from both the more direct and the more subtle references that the creatives behind it, the script writers, the directors, producers, the cast, the crew, they all were passionate about what they did, and yeah, that's what I watched the movie, it led me to the manga, and now the manga is my most favorite story for the most part, because it's there's a sequel. But yeah, the movie will always hold that that special place in my heart, as I mentioned earlier, with the Holy Trinity anagram, whatever you want to call it. I know there's a word for it, and so yeah, I did come from a different angle, but we all arrived at the same destination, and that's fighting for the sequel.
Right, so that makes me, because you guys have talked to a lot of people of this Alita Army. Are there any of them that are clamoring for the sequel that just loved the movie and didn't seek out the manga
Yes.
and go read all the stuff and watch the older stuff, the spin-offs, the OVA as you call it.
There are quite a few movie onlys. Yes.
Okay. All right, so I'm sure this is something you guys have discussed countless times on Radio Chaos, but we're going to get into it, and that is what you would like to see when they, as you say, they get this sequel made. Not if they do, when they get it done. What you would like to see. I don't know if you have two different ideas. If you guys have, I don't know, however you want to come at it.
I'll get mine out of the way first, in case Maxie has, like, he might get inspiration from or ideas from what I say. He might have a completely different ideas, and they both would be valid. But for me, first up, I'd like to see a slightly longer runtime, just so we can, have more Alita. But I'd love to see more characters, and hence why I want well, not just want, but it needs the longer runtime. Because if you keep that short runtime and just start throwing in new characters, they're not going to have much of a backstory. They're not going to have much of a background. And coming from fans like me, and even more movie-centric fans, won't know or won't be as emotionally invested in these characters. And then they'll only be emotionally invested in Alita. But yeah, for me, I'd love to see more of the characters. For example, Radio Chaos. It's a radio station in Iron City where it's run by a character by the name of Chaos. Slight spoiler alert: he has a alter ego, in a sense, called Den of Barjack. That's another character I'd like to see in the movie. Koyomi didn't die, so probably see more of her, see more of some more of like the supporting characters. So one of the main points is, aside from having new characters come in, also see a little bit more of the pre-existing characters. Like I'm not complaining about the balance they have of the focus they had on Alita and the supporting characters. But, obviously, since some of them got killed off, you can still sort of replace them, quote unquote, with these new ones coming in. So yeah, they sort of wrapped up most of Motorball, but there's still a few elements of that story or that arc that, like, tying up loose ends. So that's going to be I'd love to see at least like one or two more matches of that. And as it's among the manga fans, as it's very commonly known, I'd love to see a lot of the what they call the Badlands, or basically the area outside of Iron City. And you sort of see that in the Starship scene that's in the movie. Well, I say that because people won't know what I'm talking about unless they have watched the movie, but once you do, you'll see what I'm talking about. But you've got all sorts of landscapes, so to speak. So the Badlands isn't just all desert and mountainous areas. I mean, they have to grow their own food, so they've got to have farming or like farmable land somewhere, sort of thing, So yeah, so more new characters, some more involvement from pre-existing characters, and more environment overall. In specific, the Badlands is what I'd like to see.
How about you, Max?
Oh, can of worms here. And Angellus went first for a particularly good reason, because I have thought about this way too much. I've actually started writing my own novelized version of a sequel, which is up to 10 chapters at the moment. I've been on hiatus from that, but I need to get back to it. So the manga runs in these arcs. So there's the Discovery arc, the Hugo arc, which is Alita falling in love with him and then his demise. And then the motorball arc after that, and then after that there's a bit of a time jump, and then there's what we call the Zerkapan arc, and then there's the Badlands arc. So what Angellus is talking about is this Badlands arc where he wants to get to that. He wants to sort of rush through and get to that because it's got some of his favorite characters and favorite stuff in it. But I'm more concerned with the sequel being sort of tying up loose ends in the city before she goes out there. So I would hope that the next outing of Alita in cinemas would preferably be 3 hours, so that there's enough time to actually get all this in, because there's a lot of material to cover. But there needs to be a conclusion to Motorball. She's got to play against Jashigan, who's obviously the biggest contender, and that needs to be finalised. And then the other loose end is what happened to Zapan. And he, in the manga, has a big return for vengeance. And I'd love to see that played out on the screen, because it is epic. It is probably the most epic thing in the first half of the manga, the first series of the manga. And I would love to see that happen as well. Although I'm a huge fan of Motorball, the showdown with the returned Zapan is just mind-blowing. So want to see that. So what I'm expecting to see is, again, they're going to layer the arcs rather than have them run sequentially, just because they've only got a fixed amount of time to fit it into a movie. And it will be breakneck pace, obviously, because it's a movie. And we'll see a winding up of the Motorball, and we'll also see the return of Zapan and his attempt at revenge, which will be a huge fight. And then something will happen to Alita. I don't want to spoil it all, but something will happen to Alita which will change her trajectory, as it were. And then that will lead into the Badlands, which should be where it ends for me in the sequel. And then the third movie should be about the Badlands. And then I would hope that there was a fourth movie to finish up that first run of story from the manga. So I really feel like it needs 4 movies to finish that up. They may only get 3, in which case the Badlands might be compressed and have things removed for the sake of runtime. But it is a really fantastic story, and I'm really looking forward to what they come out with in the sequel. I could be off base with some of it, in that the things that are happening in the first movie don't match entirely what some of the characters are doing in the manga. So again, that will differ going into the sequel. So there will be things in there that will not be the same as the manga, which I don't mind. I mean, it's a different treatment. I don't know if you're aware of IP called Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams.
I haven't seen anything on it, but I've heard of it. At least the movie. I don't know if it goes beyond that. So, probably does.
So the movie's probably the least of that series. There's like, this guy did everything. He did a series of 5 books. There was a really good radio play. There was a TV series back in the 80s. And then there was that movie, I think it was the early noughties. And he wrote for all of them, and every single one of them was different. And he said it's a different medium. The story requires a different telling. And I follow that paradigm. I believe that that's perfectly okay. It's a story that follows the gist of the thing, but it's not going to be a panel by panel retelling. And that, the manga purists get a bit upset about that, but this is a movie. It's not a manga. If they ever make any more anime, then they could, get closer to the manga. But this is a movie, so it's going to have to be different due to time constraints, and I'm okay with that. I don't mind them. The first movie was written so well. I mean, there's a few little issues because it was cut down. It could have used more backstory for some of the bad guys. You don't quite understand why they're doing certain things, which I understand because I've read the manga, but you shouldn't have to go to the source material to understand their motivations. It would have been nice if they could have had another 10 minutes. 10 minutes would have done it. You could have snuck in some backstory there, a couple of flashbacks and stuff, and it would have been fine. But other than that, the movie really does hang together really well, the first movie. And if they continue in that vein, if it doesn't get too Disneyified and, woked and stuffed up and putting message over story, which always screws a movie. I've never seen a heavy message story that was any good, that they just wrecked the story to get the message out there, and it's just heavy-handed and silly. You want to entertain people and let the message sink in organically. You don't want to be going message. Oh, and there's a little story over here. We're not worried about that because message. That just ruins it. And I'm hoping that at some point they finally wake up to this and do it the right way around, and it will actually work. But getting back to this movie, it wasn't. The story came first, and that's the important thing. And it was well written. It had like a 16-year development time, which is a long time for a story development. There's been an interview where they said that they'd probably take about 6 months to write the story for the next one after Greenlight, which is a lot quicker. So it may not have the depth that the first movie had, but I'm hoping that it still has the same quality. But I'm looking forward to what they produce, and I'm hoping that they get to the end of what was happening in Iron City in the next movie, and that they do that big fight at the end, because that's going to be epic. I'm so looking forward.
Okay, so I obviously tend to prefer movies, but is this the type of thing that would benefit from like a long-running series, whether on I don't think Netflix would do it justice, but maybe HBO Max or Hulu or one of those streaming services? Would that?
It could be done well, but I just think that it would have to be animated. You couldn't do it as a live action TV show just because of the expense of the CGI. Now that you've made Alita fully CGI and done it to such a high quality for a movie, winding that back and making it look like crap for a series just would upset everybody. So I don't think they could do a live action series. I just don't think it would work. What they could do is an animated series which fills in the gaps and keep the main story in the movies. I think that would be the best way to do it. Like at the very end, the announcer's saying in a couple of months she's risen through the ranks to have her debut in the top league of motorball. You could have 1 or even 2 season series about her doing that. Or you could go back and have what happened on Mars before she came to Earth, her becoming a Kunstler and a cyborg and all this sort of stuff. They could do all of that in animated series and really fill in those gaps and get everybody really excited for the next movie before they release the movie. But I don't think a live action would work because they just couldn't do it justice with the expense of the CGI as it stands to do live action. They'd have to animate it. But that's fine. I mean, we love anime as well, so we'll be fine with that. But I'm pretty sure that Cameron wants the main story to stay in movie form. So
2 things, Maxie. One, you mentioned earlier, like you really need 4 movies. We do have hope in the sense that, Avatar's got 5, for example. So there is no fixed number. Like there's a word out there called trilogy, but, I'm almost kind of glad that Cameron is the one that's got the reins and he's not letting go like a pit bull. Because, Cameron does what Cameron wants. What was I going to say? The other thing is, without spoiling too much, there is a sort of 2-month time gap at the end of the movie, or time skip. Sorry,
it could be 3.
And that's like dead set perfect for an animated series. Like in a way, using Star Wars for example, Rogue One is like a bit of a filler movie. Star Wars Rebels, I think it's called, is a series that's like, filling in the Clone Wars or bits and pieces of it, stuff like that. And, a series for that time skip would be perfect because it explains, you can show all the motorball matches that people are clamoring for, once they sort of go crazy and nuts over the sequel. It'll show even further progression, and you can afford to focus or pull back a little bit on the focus of Alita and put more on the other side characters. In this case, being some of the motorballers. So yeah, there's always that.
Well, there's the whole backstory of Jashigan, which it would be good for them to fill in because he's a major player for the end of that arc. So they've only just shown him a little bit in the first movie, so it would be good to have more info on him. So I think they could fill that in that series quite easily. One thing I did want to just touch on was the rating for this movie, PG-13. So those who haven't read the manga wouldn't be aware of this, but it's quite brutal. It's one of those ultra-violent sort of no holes barred, dark future kind of settings. People having their brains exploded and dying all over the place. And, blood splattered against walls and all sorts of brains splattered against walls. And they couldn't do that in a PG-13 movie. I think they did a really good job in working around that with the blue cyber blood and the way they shot it. But the manga purists are sort of not very happy with the PG-13 rating, or would have preferred an R rating with more graphic violence. I can understand that, but I know why they went PG-13. It was to increase the appeal and get more bums on seats and make it more profitable, because it's quite hard to make an unknown IP profitable with an R rating. So that's why they did it. And I think that Robert Rodriguez did a fantastic job in making it fit the mold for PG-13. They pushed the envelope in certain scenes, and I've been told that they got lucky in that some days the censors can be rough and other days they are looking the other way. And I guess they got the day when they were looking the other way because it got through, maybe because Cameron said, let it through. And they went, okay. But, because Cameron can do what Cameron wants. But, it's a good movie for what it is. It might have had a little bit more impact if it was an R-rated movie with more violence in it. But for what it is, I think it stands up really well.
No, I completely agree. And that was something I actually did want to ask you about, was if this thing because I noticed that too. I was like, this thing seems pretty violent, like for PG-13. And I have heard the ratings board, if you take blood and don't make it red, like make it green, make it blue, they'll let you slide. If that had all been red, probably wouldn't have got through the censors.
Exactly.
From what I've heard, though.
Well, there's 2 puddles of blood in the movie which are red, but they're very quick flashes. You don't get to see them for very long, so they must have just let those ones slide.
Right. Yeah. I just meant like if certain scenes was like full on. Yeah, you can get away with some, but I think if they had made it all red all the time, they wouldn't have gotten away with that.
Yeah. PG-13 gets 1 F-bomb. And there's a lot of websites that have rated the F-bomb in Alita as one of the best of all time. It was very well placed. It surprised me because there's no swearing at all in the manga. And it was a fantastic scene. We have a colleague, his name's online is Muskogee Creek. We call him Creaky. He's a 8,000-year-old powerlifter. Well, actually, he's 73, but we call him 8,000 years old. And he's a big fan of Alita, and that's when he fell in love with the movie and the character when she dropped that F-bomb. But I won't spoil the scene for those who haven't seen it, but go and see it. It's great.
So this next part gets a little tricky because this is a movie, you guys, 1, it's only 3 years old, came out in 2019. 2, everyone that's part of this Alita Army is clamoring for a sequel. And a lot of times I do older movies, so I go, who would you recast it with? New movie, that's kind of hard. I think you guys liked everyone in the movie, so I don't know how, when you guys saw this question, I don't know how you wanted to attack this one.
Angellus has some suggestions. Where you go?
Yeah, me and Maxie discussed this particular section and said it'd probably be best if I go first. Now, like, the casting is littered with, award-winning talent. So you could almost take people out and put other people in, and they're not going to, if they're not suited or designed for it, they're not going to put them in there. But like in hindsight, Rosa Salazar that plays Alita is what I call the main draw card. And for me, you'd be shooting yourself in the foot if you recast your draw card. The main reason, the primary reason, perhaps for some the only reason that people even go to watch the movie would be for that. So to do that, yeah, like I said, you would be shooting yourself in the foot. And I'm sure if you even just Google it, you'd find examples of like recastings that have destroyed like movies and franchises alike. But as for other roles, one particular role, and I know he comes up a lot, Willem Dafoe. I'd love to see, like, I reckon he could possibly make a good Nova, as an example. Not just in the aesthetics looks, but he's definitely got the talent. He's definitely played villains. He's also played good guys as well before. But again, same thing could be said of Edward Norton. Vector, who's played by Mahershala Ali. No, it's left my mind. I did have one recasting for him, but he's out of there now. Jashigan, one of my other favorite actors, who I'm also sort of fan casting as a one character that hasn't been introduced yet, Scott Adkins. He could have made a really good Jashigan as well. And if it comes to any physical fight scenes that will most likely occur in the sequel, he'd be great for that because he's also got that skill set as well. Chiron, you could almost pick any female actor worth their salt and put her in place. I mean, after all, as Maxie said, she's only in the anime, and there is no Chiron character in the manga. But in the anime, she was blonde, and obviously Jennifer Connelly is a brunette or dark-haired. But I mean, that didn't affect the story at all. That didn't affect her performance or how she portrayed the character. And the core motivations and reactions of the character of Chiron in the anime were there in the movie as well. At the beginning, like when she was very sort of, angsty in a way, when she was very against the world and, wanted to, slight spoiler alert, wanted to get back up to Zalem at any cost. It does go a little bit more on that, but again, watch the movie if you want to find out more. But things happen in the movie, and she gets influenced in her personality changes, whether it's good or whether it's for the better or for the worse. You'll just have to watch the movie to find out. But so yeah, I didn't really have many actresses to replace her, but I mean, for Alita, it came down to Rosa, Zendaya, Micah Monroe, who's slight bit of a scream queen, as they call it herself, and I think Bella Thorne might have been a fourth choice. I'm not too sure. But yeah, and obviously Zendaya and Micah are, I guess, have bigger stars than Rosa Salazar, or at least at the time of the casting anyway. Since then, obviously, Rosa's become a much bigger star. So yeah, as the story goes, when they auditioned for it, I don't know whether it was her personality. I don't know whether it's because they have the same background, upbringing, whatever the case may be. Because they're both Rodriguez and Salazar are both Hispanic, for example. So they're very open with their emotions. They're very, I don't know if extroverted is the way to put it, but they're very affectionate in displaying their emotions. And so when Rosa Salazar auditioned for it, she quite literally made Rodriguez cry because much like my first experience with the movie Alita, I was that mind blown that and Rodriguez himself claimed essentially the same reason. So he had to go back to that audition tape and re-watch it, at least once more, perhaps probably a few more times. and that's when he he got the feels in the chest sort of thing, like, and said, this is the one. If I had any say in the matter, and you'd think you'd have quite a lot of pull as the director, he'd say, I want Rosa Salazar as Alita. There's no one else. And again, in hindsight, there's really no one else I wouldn't recast as her. Everyone else, again, like I said, they all did a fantastic job. But yeah, you just don't recast your main draw card. And yeah, that'd be it for me.
Sounds entirely fair. I also think that the casting in this movie was pretty much on point. There's only a few side characters that didn't really get much of a showing that they could possibly, change up for a sequel. Recasting the entire movie here, I just couldn't imagine it without Rosa, Jennifer Connelly. They could have possibly picked a younger man for Dyson Ido and swapped out Christoph Waltz, but I mean, he did such a good job of it, and the movie went for a whole wholesome sort of father-daughter relationship, so having him older worked there. But in the manga, Ido's quite a bit younger. It's kind of hard to imagine Ido, played by Christoph Waltz, as being a successful hunter-warrior and fighting cyborgs when he's a meat boy. So somebody younger might have made that a little bit more believable. Also, Koyomi has been aged up in the manga. She's a baby. In fact, Koyomi means calendar in Japanese, and she's actually the calendar for time jumps to tell how far they've jumped forward by what her age is. But that's obviously not a thing in the movie because they're overlapping the story arcs. So it wasn't important, so they aged her up so she could be a friend to Alita. And obviously Nurse Scarehead doesn't exist in the manga. There's another character.
Forgot about her too, yeah.
A male character who's a friend of Ido's. I'm trying to remember what his name is, but it just left my brain.
Gonzu,
thank you. Yeah, so Gonzu was replaced with Nurse Scarehead, probably because it was a bit male heavy and they wanted to have a female sort of person working with him, which I think works for the movie, but possibly that could be recast as a guy. I haven't really got anybody in mind for Gonzu. He was a little short guy with a metal plate on the top of his head, but he seemed sort of sagey and stuff like that, so he was interesting. But the two I wanted to talk about was obviously Nova, who we only see a little bit of because he talks through other characters during the movie. Edward Norton does a fantastic job. Looks a lot like the manga character, but we don't really get to see him play Nova particularly much. But if I had to replace him, and obviously I don't have a good knowledge of current actors. My knowledge is for older actors, so I'm kind of going back in time a little bit. I think Rutger Hauer could have done a really good Nova back in the day when he was younger. He's obviously too old to play
he's
now.
a good choice.
Yeah, but he I mean, you watch him in Blade Runner with that fantastic monologue at the end, and you go, oh yeah, he could play Nova. He could totally do it. And the other side character, well, he's a side character at the moment, but he will be important in the start of the next movie, is the guy who plays Jashigan. And he's actually Australian, and he's not actually on this list, so I can't just cheat and pull his name up. Do you remember who it was?
Who played him?
Yeah,
Jai Courtney.
Jai Courtney, thank you. Yeah, so Jai Courtney, he didn't look a lot like the manga version. The manga version of Jashigan has long blonde hair and a really haughty sort of look, whereas Jai Courtney looked more businesslike and had short curly hair. Which makes more sense for the helmet, I guess, but it didn't really feel like Jashigan to me. So the actor that I was thinking could have done that is David Beckham back in the early noughties. He's got that look, that sort of haughty look with the long blonde hair. He would have made an excellent Jashigan at that age. Strong features. Can sort of look down his nose at you because he's got a longish nose and the long blonde hair sort of cascading down to his shoulders. I think he would have made a really good Jashigan, being a little bit closer to the original in the manga. But like I said, the movie's a reimagination, so these characters aren't always going to look the same. But I thought those were two that could have been tweaked up. But otherwise, I thought the cast did a fantastic job, and they really fit the bill for those characters. They could have recast Hugo into somebody a little bit more weedy to match the manga more, but it makes more sense that it's a good-looking guy on screen. You see him there, and he looks attractive enough to have attracted Alita at first glance. So it sort of works in a visual sense for the movie. So I don't know that I'd change him out, but if you wanted to get more closer to the original source material, you could have picked somebody who was a little bit more weedy, like maybe Daniel Radcliffe or something like that when he was a bit younger, just to try and get that sort of that look. But I personally wouldn't change that. But yeah, I mean, it's a really well-cast movie. That, as Angela said, there's great actors in there playing parts. There's lots of Academy Awards in that movie, and they're not in the main parts. Like there was some complaints about, why did you cast a practically unknown for such a high cost movie? And it was a case of because she made the director cry when she tried out for the movie. She is the epitome of a leader, and that's why we're celebrating her birthday this weekend, and we follow her in all the other things she does, and she's fantastic. So good on you, Rosa Salazar, and we hope to see her in many more Alita movies very soon. There.
Okay, so I know. I want to ask you this real quick before we move on. I know you guys bring up the James Cameron of it all, but do you want Robert Rodriguez to keep directing these?
I think he did a fantastic
or do you want Cameron to take that over?
Well, I mentioned this early on Radio Chaos, and it's a case of either or, really. I don't. By the time, like even now, it's already in various digital and news outlets. But there's Cameron's thrown out there that if it gets to later on in his life, or if his priorities change, he might not direct or choose to direct Avatar 4 and 5. Maybe he might all of a sudden want to start developing on other projects, lead a sequel. And so he might end up wanting to go back to directing. That being said, if he goes on a completely different tangent yet again, you still have that incredible backup that is Robert Rodriguez. Like, everyone's familiar with the way he works. Everyone's familiar with the way he's told the story. An example of his, at least I'm fairly certain it was his decision, but in the novelization, there's an ending scene where Alita slices through tap water, or dripping tap water, and basically cuts, is so accurate that she cuts like a drop of water in half. But due to the emotional impact and what happened leading up to that event, Alita is crying. A teardrop falls from her face, and she cuts that instead. And then you quite literally see 2 teardrops drop down instead of the one. And I thought that was very, very poignant. And so, yeah, when it comes to who directs, Cameron is the maestro. He is what I call the godfather of cinema. So, you put his name on anything, it'll make you $1 billion. Well, I mean, obviously not in the case of Alita, but that's a completely different story. It was fighting an uphill battle to begin with. But yeah, because Cameron couldn't do it at the time, who knows if he can do it again in the future. Rodriguez stepped up to the plate, and he, what I say, managed to crack the Cameron code. He managed to take a script written by him and told a Cameron movie, and you do feel those elements in there, and he still managed to even throw in elements of his own as well. So that's another like a feather in Rodriguez's cap. So yeah, to I guess basically answer the question, it's like Yes, I'd probably say, Cameron is the best, so most, even myself, would naturally lean towards wanting him to direct, because, you can't go wrong with Cameron. But if he's unavailable, then you've got such a strong safety net with Rodriguez that, you know, you're in a safe spot whichever way the dice rolls. And that's how I feel about both Cameron and Rodriguez.
My feeling on the matter is that the whole location was changed from the state of Kansas, where it's based in the manga, to Central America. And that was done because of the physics of a space elevator, which is what Zalem, the floating city, actually is. It's connected to a space elevator that runs up to orbit. And you can't actually put those off the equator. They have to be on the equator, or else they spin out of control and break up. You physically, with the way physics works, you can't do it. You've got to have them around the equator. So they moved it there because Cameron prefers things to be scientifically accurate, or at least vaguely scientifically accurate. And it sort of worked in Rodriguez's favor in that he brought a Latino element to it, and you can see it in the movie. It's quite obvious, and it works for the location. And if he was then to step aside and Cameron took over, you might lose that sort of Latino element, which I think it would miss being based where it is. Having said that, also, the reason why they had to work with a $200 million initial budget, which was brought down with tax breaks and incentives and things like that, was that Cameron, being a bigger draw card as a director, would have got the budget for 2.5 hours, whereas because it was Rodriguez, they could only push for a budget for 2 hours. And that's why they only got 200 million instead of 250 million. And because they sort of had to make it shorter, there was corners cut and things that would have made the narrative a little bit stronger were cut out of it, like backstories and stuff like that, and training montages and things, which I would have liked to have seen in an extended version. But the cost of doing the extra CGI, they just didn't have the money to do that for a DVD release. But the upshot of Cameron coming back would be they'd get more budget, basically, which would mean we could have a longer movie, which would then serve the story better, but then it might not serve the setting better because of the way Rodriguez has brought the Latino element to it. Having said that, Rodriguez did a fantastic job of filming in a Cameron-esque manner, but he brought his own camera angles and camera style into it, especially through Motorball, where it's got that fast pace, but everything is clearly visible. There's no shaky cam. There's no sort of missing the action. You can see exactly what's going on, and Rodriguez is well known for that, and he did a fantastic job in this movie of making Motorball pop and being really understandable and really visible, and being able to tell what's going on from the get-go. And I thought that was fantastic. So, he brought things to it that Cameron might have faltered on even. So, I mean, they've got their strengths. Cameron in the money department, Rodriguez in the high-speed action department and the Latino department. And yeah, I mean, you will get a slightly different movie depending on who's doing it. But I think they both love the character and love the IP and love making movies and love doing a great job with them. And I think either one of them could produce a fantastic sequel. But they will be, a little bit different. But I'd be happy. I just want one. I don't care. I do care who directs it, but in the end, they'll both do a good job. So just make a sequel for me, guys. I'll be happy.
Just standing on what Maxie said, Cameron does demand a bigger budget, and mainly because people know that when he does, if you give Cameron money, he'll make something special. What makes Rodriguez special is that he will milk whatever budget you give him, and like something special that I always say about Rodriguez is he has a Midas touch. Whatever you give him, he'll turn it into gold, sort of thing. He can make a movie out of a $7,000 budget, and clearly he's made a movie made out of a $200 million budget. And as Max was saying before, he could only push for a budget, for a 2-hour movie, or in this case, 2 hours 12 minutes. Who's counting? But yeah, he made that to, like, he spent every dollar of that $200 million budget and spent it well. And like, yeah, that's the plus. We will see different movies, but as I will finish up by saying that as Yukito Kishiro, the creator of Alita, as he put it, both movies would keep the spirit of Gundam, will keep the spirit of Alita's story front and center at its core, and that's key. That's what made it successful in the first place, and that's what will continue to make it successful.
Yeah.
Okay. Got one last thing I want you guys to do, and I'm going to get you out of here. And that's, I know a lot of the people of the Alita Army are probably going to listen to this, but there are going to be some people that have never seen Alita. So, taking the manga and all the backstory, all those things, I want you to give a final pitch on why they should see this, just as a standalone movie, why they should seek this out and give it a chance and become a member of the Alita Army.
Something just popped into my head, and since I'm prone to forgetting things, sorry Maxie, but I'll go first again. If you're a fan of sci-fi, give this movie a go. If you're a fan of any of the actors, whether it be Rosa, whether it be Christopher Waltz, any one of them, even the side characters, give it a go. If you're a fan of cyberpunk, if you played Cyberpunk 2077 like for 1,000 hours plus, give the movie a go. Well, yeah, that too. Yeah, if you don't like, or I won't say hate or don't like, but if you never thought that you would like sci-fi, if you never thought you would like cyberpunk, give it a go, because it is my, in both an objective and biased point of view, if any movie would sell you on those points, whether you're a pre-existing fan or you're like a completely new one, this would be the movie, or at least one of few movies that will draw you in. And who knows, it might become your bar of chocolate. Again, I'm almost literally not expanding on things that I've said throughout this podcast, and saying, go watch the movie if you want to find out more. Go watch the movie if you want to find out more. It's not just me selling the movie. It's like there's a reason, and the reason why I don't expand on that is because you will lose that emotional impact, emotional investment that the movie literally sells itself on. So yeah, this is the movie that will sell you on all of those things. This will be the movie that will suck you in, will draw you in, whether you're a pre-existing fan, whether you know the manga, whether you don't, whether you just like sci-fi in general or you don't. Say for example you didn't like rom-coms, and let's just say if this would be the movie that would make you like that genre of movie. So whatever you think Alita is, a cyberpunk, sci-fi, all of the above, give this movie a go. And I will end this on a factor that made that final decision of watching Alita at the cinema, and something that I do for movies, whether it be Blu-rays or cinemas itself, is that I'll look up reviews or trailers on YouTube. And I saw how much flack this movie was getting. And it wasn't the fact that, I loved the movie and I hated them for giving that flack. I was already sort of, not liking critics at the best of times. At the worst, well, I can't say that on air. But, I thought, this movie is getting so much crap compared to the other choice that I had, that, what? I'm going to give you the goose. For those that have seen Top Gun, you'll know what I mean. I'll flip them the bird, give them the middle finger, and I'm going to go watch this movie and make my own decision. And, as my final word of selling this movie to you guys, I implore you to do the same. Go watch this movie, make your own decision. Sure, yes, be influenced by trailers, be influenced by critics, but don't let them make the decision for you. You do that. You have the power to, give them the money or not. And like I said, much like myself, Maxi, pretty much literally everyone in the fandom, go see it for yourself. Make your own decision, make your own opinion. And if you still don't like it, then, that's the way the cookie crumbles. It's just not your cup of tea. But, and this is the bias side of me coming out, I just don't see that happening. So, yeah, that's me selling the movie.
Well, I'll take a swing at it, but rather than, you have heard the emotion in my voice telling you about this movie. So I'm biased as hell, right? Okay? So people don't tend to want to listen to people who are biased because, it's not super objective. So rather than me telling you how I feel about it, I'll bring up a whole bunch of stuff that happened around the movie that other people have said and I have experienced and sell you it through other people. And they will be more objective than me. Okay, so when the movie came out, as Angellus said, it got a whole heap of flack. There's possibly some reasons for that to do with the merger, and they were trying to devalue it so that they didn't have to. Disney didn't have to pay so much. There was also a Disney movie that came out around the same time that people were matching up to get against each other, and they were trying to pump that one up while pushing Alita down. There's no proof for this stuff. There's a lot of anecdotal evidence, but that's water under the bridge. The advertising wasn't great because the advertising team were looking for new jobs because they knew they were going to lose theirs during the merger. So it wasn't well advertised in some areas. But still, if you love a movie, if you love any Cameron movies, go see this one because he had a lot to do with it. If you love Robert Rodriguez's style, go and see this movie because it sure as hell is in there. If you love anime, go and see this movie because not just myself, but a whole lot of other people believe it's the best manga / anime to live action adaptation, barring none. This movie has obviously, once you've seen it, you will see that it has been created with love all the way down to the core. The people who we've interviewed a lot of people involved in the production, from people who made costumes to people who were standing around in said costumes for lighting effect, get the lighting effects right for the CGI to be produced. We've interviewed minor actors, and every single one of them have been wonderful people. Every single one of them said they loved being on set. They enjoyed everything they had to do with the movie. Even the people who were pulled in from around the local town area to be bit part players, to be background people, to be extras in the motorball scenes and stuff like that. And, it was winter time. They had to stand out in the cold for hours, and they didn't care. They had a great time. It was fun to be involved with this movie. And when the people involved in it are having fun, it shows in the final product. You get a fantastic movie. And that was them saying that. Go back and watch any one of our guests that have come on Radio Chaos, and you will see them waxing lyrical about how much fun they had. And that tells you how good the movie is if you don't want to believe somebody who's invested myself or Angellus is. But this movie got a lot of flack, as was mentioned at the beginning, and it had 32% on Rotten Tomatoes before it opened. And then it started making money, and the reviews were at 94% from the viewers. And that's a huge difference, 32% from the critics, which, critic comes from the word critique, which is to give an unbiased opinion of positives and minuses, right? But critics these days work off criticize, and that's what they do. They criticize movies, and they got it wrong. It's critique, not criticize. So they basically got the idea wrong from the very beginning. But there was a lot of criticism for this movie, and some of it was just pulling such a long bow that you're like, what is wrong with you? It's like, where did you get that from? Complaining about Alita cyborg figure with a wasp waist and too big of boobs. And I'm like, she's a mega athlete that's like a B cup at best. How can she have too big of boobs? Where are you getting this from? So basically they were sticking the knife in because that was the trend at the time. Since then, the cart has turned, and a lot of people who are reviewing it now are very positive about the movie because it hasn't got that stigma attached by the devaluation for the merger. But we see people, ever since 2019, every week there's people tweeting out, oh my God, I just saw Alita Battle Angel. Why did I sleep on this movie for so long? It is fantastic. Where's the sequel? You can find a tweet every single week, and we have people that we don't know are tweeted this out there. Where's the sequel? This is fantastic. I want more.
And this is people outside the fandom as well.
Yeah. Well, they're not outside the fandom for very long because they end up joining the fandom. But we've got a sequel petition running. It's been running since early 2019. It's up to 176,000 signatures, which is not insignificant. And there was this one tweet that I want to bring up from 2019. Somebody had tweeted about their mother. Said, I introduced my mother to Twitter to give her something to do because she didn't have any hobbies. And she ended up getting sucked into the Alita Battle Angel fandom. And I don't know why. She's not even her favorite movie. And you can't see Josh, but he's cracking up. And that is the whole point of the fandom. The fandom is so much fun and so positive that people just join it because it's fun. They're not even into the movie. So that's the reason to join the fandom. But the fandom is about getting the sequel. There's a few hurdles still to get over. I think when Avatar 2 finally hits theaters after all this COVID bullshit and smacks $1 billion out of the park or more, he will have paid back his $1 billion that he owes Disney through getting it from Fox, and Fox bought that debt that he owes them when they took over 20th Century Fox. But once that's all paid back and he's back in the black, then he will get money for Alita and we will get a sequel. That's what I'm expecting. He's maxed out his credit card. He's got to pay it off. Once it's paid off, there will be money for an Alita sequel. That's what I see. Early 2023, there'll be a green light announcement.
Just as a bit of a plug for the fandom as well, while you're on this subject, and I want to get this out, especially for the listeners, to give yourself an idea of the kind of, like, how open of a fandom and how positive we try to keep it. For example, we do a lot of fundraisers. Like, for example, we flew a banner over the Oscars, saying Alita, #Alita Army, #Alita sequel. That only cost a set amount, like, I don't know, $1,000, $2,000, something like that.
It was $1,235 if I remember correctly.
Yeah, but of course we raised much more money than that. So we kept it open for a longer length of time and basically said any excess that we get, we'll give out to charity, whether it be Feeding America or Open Bionics or
that
things
one was
like
Open Bionics. Basically, we were getting so much money in from the fandom. They were keen to back it, even though it had already been funded. That we said, okay,
we got our target within 24 hours.
There was a young lady, Tilly Lockie, who had both of her forearms amputated early in her life, and she had been granted 2 robotic arms through Cameron and 20th Century Fox, and that was part of the opening of the red carpet of the movie, and she's over in England, and she's since become an ambassador for Open Bionics. And we saw that and we said, well, that was fantastic what Cameron did. Let's try and do something similar. So we decided we were going to put that money towards Open Bionics. And we actually had, we were supporting one arm, which was $12,000, but that's only to purchase the arm. You also need money for fittings and resizings and all of the travel and everything that goes with it. So it was about $18,000 all up. And we had another fundraiser for another banner, which ran over. and we kept that open, and that pushed the extra funding all the way to 18,000. So we ended up fully funding a cybernetic arm for one lucky recipient who wouldn't have got it otherwise, and he received that earlier this year, and that was fantastic. That was finally fulfilled, and that he's also wanting to go on to become an ambassador for Open Bionics and run his own YouTube channel and all this sort of stuff. And he would otherwise have just had to deal with unpowered prosthetics and things like that from like the last century. But now he has a fully functioning cybernetic replacement, which works off movements of the stump to make the hand open and close and do what it needs to do. So it's fantastic that we were able to do that.
Yeah, so
That truly is awesome.
with this particular banner in question, it was flown over the Oscars, and Rosa Salazar herself obviously saw this. And at the time, she was predominantly on Instagram, and like she put out there that like the Oscar for the best fandom goes to #Alita Army. There are other various what I call funny tweets where like a random female said, "I wish I had a guy fight for me the way the Alita Army fight for a sequel," and another example again is, if the apocalypse come, that the people that survive on the other end, part of that will be the Alita Army. And it's just general stuff like that. We do have our shortcomings. We do have had our history, but we've been lucky to avoid the worst of it. And we've been lucky that we've managed to stay positive and keep our core group together. And you don't have to be part of the Alita Army to love it. You can be a casual fan as well. So as an extra selling point to go watch the movie, just because you watched it, we don't expect you to go like tweeting, Instagramming, TikToking, whatever the case may be. Although if you've got a creative mind, again, I definitely implore you to let that creativity open, and you'd be surprised at what you can make and put out there. But yeah, like with all these tweets, with all the social media, with all the video edits, photo edits, fan artwork, it existed before the movie came, but it just exponentially exploded after the movie. And if that isn't an extra selling point, there's just a whole much more beyond that. And yeah, like I've I came in from a different direction, as we mentioned at the beginning, and I've stepped back, and I've taken a look at the history, and I've seen that progression for myself, and it's all because Alita Battle Angel was released February 14, 2019, and this is just one movie. Imagine what they can do with a trilogy or 4, 5, and then chuck in an animated series, chucking a revamped computer game or reskinned game. It's mind-boggling what you can do with this, the potential that this property has. And well, let's just say I won't mention Disney, because then we'd go down a much darker path. But
Disney
yeah,
make more dollars. We want to give you said dollars, make more.
So yeah, this just all leads back into selling the movie. So if listening to this podcast has, even piqued your interest, please just give it a go and make your final decision exactly that, your final decision.
All right, I think I don't think you can sell it any better than that. That's going to wrap it up. So why don't you guys once again give a plug for where they can find you, and for you, Max, your podcast, and the Radio Chaos. Tell everybody where they can go find all this good stuff.
Well, there's a lot of Alita Army action on Twitter. Use the hashtag Alita Army, and you'll find lots of tweets. We just had a tweet storm for Rosa's birthday, so there'll be a lot of tweets out there with Rosa Salazar and and Alita Army and Alita sequel and all those sorts of hashtags kicking around. But there's Facebook groups. There's the Alita Army live stream, which happens every Saturday, which Angellus and I are the hosts of. I have a blog site which has a Alita sequel. It's Alita Fallen Angel .home.blog, I believe is the web address. But
I'll look that up.
Yeah, if you Google Alita Army, you will find heaps of people doing YouTube videos, Facebook groups, tweets, and all sorts of good stuff that you can get interested in after you watch the movie and go, oh my God, this is so fantastic, I want more. And you can come and hang out with us. You're even welcome on the live stream. There's two of them, in fact, the one on the Alita Army channel, and there's one that's hosted by Angellus and Creaky on Creaky's channel on YouTube, which is 23 hours before the main one on the Alita Army channel, where you can jump straight on there and talk about Alita to your heart's content if you so wish.
Hell, if you do decide to watch the movie after this podcast and you just want to say, wow, you were right, or wow, you're completely wrong, and we'll welcome that as well. By all means, jump on the podcast, jump on the live stream, jump on live chat even, and just type it, and yeah, or type in Alita Army or just Alita in general on Twitter or Instagram, and look us up that way. Because in some way, shape or form, Alita will be in our tags, Alita will be in our profile pics, Alita will be, in whatever caption or whatever we tweet, and yeah, and that's how we found the fandom, and that's how we keep it current, I guess, because so that when people, much like Josh's listeners out there, go watch Alita and they want to find out more, and they end up Googling it, this is what comes up.
Oh, and there's also heaps of, on DeviantArt, there's heaps of people doing Alita artwork. And to find Science Fiction Remnant, just Google Science Fiction Remnant. There's a website, and you can access all of the podcasts for that podcast through that web portal. But it's also available on all good repeaters for podcasts, Good Pods and Spotify and Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts and all those places too. So you can find not only Alita on there, there's a couple of episodes of Alita, but there's also a whole bunch of other sci-fi IPs where we have lots of fun discussing those.
All right, and as always, you can follow the show. The easiest thing to do, go to linktr.ee/ynfmoviepod. It'll have podcast platforms, social media, YouTube channel, my personal letterbox, so you can see what I'm watching that's not being covered on the show. And I'll be back next week with a new guest and a new movie. And who knows, that may become your next favorite movie. You guys take care. I'll talk to you next time.